For some time now, a vibration has been taking place in this ML500 that is consistent. It's a consistent vibration that it's not only present on the torque, but on the torquing conditions, on the detorquing condition, when I take my foot off the gas, from 0 to any speed, it's always there, and it feels like a grinding, it feels like a grinding sound. So what we're going to do, we're going to inspect the driveline today. We're going to inspect the drive shafts in the front, the drive shafts in the back, and the main driveline that goes from the engine to the rear wheels, and the drive shaft that goes from the transfer case to the front wheels, and try to identify where this vibration is. What I can't say for sure is it's not the engine mounts, because we've replaced all 3 of them, and it's not the wheel bearings, because we've replaced all 4 of them. So my speculation it is the drive shaft support bearing, and but nevertheless, we will look at this and see what the situation is, because this vibration has been really annoying me. So let's take a look at what it is. We're finally going to get to address this. Let's do it. Now, I did do an inspection of the front drive shafts and the rear drive shafts. And when I say drive shafts, are the one with the constant velocity joints. The boot's integrity is still there, and there's no vibration or any play in the drive shafts themselves. I don't know if you can see here. Let me straighten out the camera. The boots are fine, and that's the rear ones right there. And there's similar ones in the front. The universal joints, on the other hand, are also fine, and there is no play in it. However, look, I did notice this. Check this out. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let's see if we could. Let me see if I could give you a better fixed angle. There is some ridiculous amount of play inside of this drive shaft. You see it? And if I even move the muffler, there's quite a bit of play. Sorry, the phone is shaking. But anyway, I am not convinced, but I am led to believe that this drive shaft support bearing is what seems to be the cause of this vibration that you can feel on the bottom of your seat. It more or less comes from the middle, and sure enough, this drive shaft carrier bearings or support bearings is located more or less in the middle of the car. So what we'll do is we'll remove the drive shaft from the rear differential to the front of the transfer case, and we'll put this thing on a bench and take a closer look, and at the same time we'll inspect the U-joints and see if they're okay, because oftentimes what could be the cause of a failure of the carrier bearing is the U-joints not being failed U-joints. All right, so let's take this drive shaft off. So what I'll do is I'll remove these bolts right here. There are 2 bolts that hold the carrier in place. We can undo them from the top here with the wrench, and then we will take off those 4 bolts at the drive shaft right there. We'll drop the drive shaft, and we'll see what comes of it, guys. Let's make this happen. See what we see on the bench. All right, the drive shaft is out. These are 6 size 6 Allen screws. You're gonna need a 16 millimeter to take these bolts out right here from the top, and it's gonna be a little bit of work, I'm not gonna lie. Now, these right here, on the other hand, you would think they're 16 millimeter bolts, but they're actually 5/8. 5/8 socket is a lot tighter around the bolt than the 16 millimeter, because the head on these bolts is a little shallow, so you might risk slipping. Now, how do you take this out? Don't do what I've tried to do and risk ruining the rubber on one of these U-joints like I did red in here. I don't know if you could tell, because now I'm probably going to have to change this U-joint shortly. We'll see. Hopefully it'll be fine. But rather, what you can do is put the car in neutral, and you're going to get under the car, rotate the drive shaft so you have the access to the bolt in a comfortable position, and then give it a good shot on the park brake with your foot, and then just get under there and loosen the torque on it. Now, mind you, these bolts have Loctite on here. Let me show you. These are 2 bolts that hold the drive shaft support bearing, and these are the bolts for the drive shaft and the rear differential. You'll see there's Loctite on them, so there's going to be some friction on these babies to take them off. But like I said, if you put the car in neutral and you give it a good shot with your foot on the park brake, you'll be able to break torque on these bolts back here. Now, mind you, I haven't said that. The reason I took this drive shaft out, because I was speculating that this drive shaft support bearing was kind of loose. I mean, it is a 20-year-old drive shaft support bearing, and the rubber is loose, so to speak, but it's not damaged. It's not damaged, and there's no grind in it. So I don't know. What I am inclined to do, what I am tempted to do, is take this car off the jacks, because right now it's on jacks and jack stands, and take it for a drive. See if I've isolated the problem. After all, it's no longer an all-wheel drive car now. It's actually a front-wheel drive. So I should still be able to drive this thing without the rear drive shaft. Also, before you take this thing out, mark its location versus the rear differential, because I mean, even though this is a unit, this whole unit as a unit is balanced, try to put it back the way it was, if possible. If not, I mean, I don't think it'll be a big deal, so long as if you end up replacing some of these components, you actually the sticker right here, as a matter of fact, it says, yeah, I'll show it to you. And by the way, just nice thing about this Mercedes W163, it's made in the USA. Although it's German designed, it is made in America. System balance, the drive shaft, do not replace the shaft without replacing mating shaft. So they want you to, if you're going to replace this, you got to replace that one too. All right, guys, I'm going to take this car off the jack stands and take it for a drive to see if maybe I've isolated the problem. Maybe it's in the front. I don't know, because this vibration, I got to tell you guys, is driving me nuts, and it's coming from the middle. So let me take it for a drive, and I'll get back to you, let you know what the results of that is. Now, let's do this. So I thought I had this great idea that if I took the rear drive shaft off and took it off the jack stands and took the car for a drive, be that it's an all-wheel drive, it's now a front-wheel drive, the car would drive. Well, newsflash, guys. The car does not drive without the rear drive shaft installed. Imagine that. Also, that being said, once you realize, well, don't do what I did. So I'm just letting you know. I'll tell you what I did. Once you realize the car does not go in, it does not drive without a rear drive shaft, don't just put the car from drive to park. You're going to want to shut the car off first and then put it in park. Otherwise, yeah, it's not going to go in park. All right, guys, I am going to put this car back on jacks. I did purchase the drive shaft support bearing, thinking that was the issue, so I am going to replace it. I mean, the rubber is a little weak. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not super stiff either. So hopefully, maybe that'll address the vibration issue I've been chasing, which is starting to really annoy me. All right, guys, I'll let you know how it goes, and I'll tell you all the torque specs once the unit is reinstalled. Well, first, like I said, I'm going to replace this drive shaft support bearing, because I did buy it thinking that was going to be the issue, but honestly, it looks like it's fine. Even though I got to tell you, it is a little on the loose side. It's not super tight. So what we'll do is we'll disconnect these the two clamps that holds the U-joint to the forward end of the drive shaft, and then we'll remove this yoke here, and then we'll remove the drive shaft support bearing. Let's do it. I'll show it to you guys as we move along on this process. Let's do it. And here we are. We made it halfway through the job. Before I removed this yoke, I marked it so that trying to put it back exactly the way it went in. I don't know if you can see the mark here. It is at 12 o'clock position, so that it mates with the splines on the shaft. You could use a hammer and a punch or a screwdriver from the from forward aft, and slowly rotate the shaft, and the bearing will pry out. I gotta tell you though, guys, this bearing does not seem like it's in a bad shape. However, what I did notice that on the U-joint of the dry shaft, it's this one here is a little bit notchy right about here, and I'm wondering if that is causing a vibration. I don't know. It's not a smooth play. I did order a U-joint. It's on its way here, so hopefully that might change things. Maybe we'll get rid of this vibration. I don't know. In the meantime, let's put this forward bearing. The dry shaft support bearing back on, and it should go in this direction like this. This is the front of the dry shaft. This has the point in the front. Don't forget to do it that way. I'll provide you guys with the torques as this thing goes back together, so that you put it together properly. And don't forget to subscribe and give it a like if this video is of help to you. Now let's continue the job, and now we're putting it all back together. Let's do it. Well, the unit is all back together, and this is what I was talking about. This is how you're going to install it. So I did put some C5A, which is a copper-based anti-seize lubricating compound. Loctite, that was the company. Loctite makes this product. I mean, my sticker came off, but I'll attach a picture to this video. And what we did, we slid the bearing on it with the C5A on the contact surfaces, and I pressed it in with the yoke as I was screwing the nut in. I did put some Loctite thread lock for the nut, and for the shank, it's a Loctite 242. It's a blue Loctite, nothing too crazy. And then this nut, it's torqued at 110 foot-pounds. I'm now waiting for the U-joints that I got. I'm going to replace those as well, since there was, like I said, there was a little bit of notchy in one of the two. So if I'm going to replace one, I'm going to replace both. Kind of like anything else, guys. If you're going to replace a wiper blade, you're going to replace both wiper blades. And if you're going to do the front, you're going to do the wiper blade in the back as well. If you're going to change a headlamp, might as well change the other one because it's about to go. So that is the philosophy that I go by. Obviously, it depends on what it is. If I'm going to do one U-joint, I'm going to do the other one. So this is back together. Waiting for the U-joints to arrive, and we will put this whole dry shaft back together and throw it back in. All right, guys, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Putting this thing back together and throwing it back in the car. Let's do it. And the dry shaft is back together, guys. Got the U-joints installed. I ended up going with the Spicer brand for the U-joints. There are U-joints that don't require lubrication, and they're the same ones from the factory, especially because this dry shaft is also a Spicer dry shaft. As we mentioned, 110 foot-pounds on the yoke on the shaft. I put some anti-seize compound on the bearing surface of the bearing before the bearing went on the shaft, and then we put the yoke, 110 foot-pounds, put some Loctite. I use Loctite 242 blue color. U-joints. There are several tutorial videos on YouTube how to do U-joints, but it's relatively simple. You have a big socket on the outside that hugs the outer surface of one side. Small socket that hugs the inner surface of the bearing on the outside. And you just put it in a press, and as you squeeze the press, this whole unit will come forth. And then with channel locks, you remove the outer cap, and you should be able to slide the whole unit out. Now this one here obviously has these 4 bolts here, which, by the way, blue Loctite, 150 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. When you torque that, and just so you know, every 12 inch-pounds is 1 foot-pounds. So 150 inch-pounds. Like, for example, this one back here, this was more of it's a big old, with the press, you do a vise, small socket, big socket. You press through with the channel locks, you remove it, make sure that the bearing surfaces are clean. I also put some anti-seize compound, the same one that I use for everything else. So when the time comes to, you can still see some of that copper. So when the time comes for these to remove, if they're ever going to come off again, it'll be a relatively easy job. All right, now also, when you take this part off the drive shaft, make sure you mark it before you take it off so that it goes back together the same way it came off. And you can tell I put a mark here, you see it? One right here and one right here. So being that this is it's a balanced unit, it goes back together the same way it came off. Same goes with this yoke, with the drive shaft. And if you're gonna replace this, you gotta replace this as well. But all we did is replace the U-joints and the carrier bearing. So essentially the drive shaft is the same one. Okay, this is now done and it's ready to go back in the car. There will be some finagling to do. We're gonna install this in a twisting fashion. I might have to go inside with first, and then you have to rotate it and move the muffler out of the way a little bit in order to fit it in there. Let's fit this drive shaft in, and then we'll talk about the torques for these bolts right here, which I believe is 15 foot-pounds for these, 35 foot-pounds for these ones over here, which by the way, they're 5/8, so it's not a metric one. And then for the 16 millimeter bolts, it's 37 foot-pounds, and make sure you use Loctite on all the hardware. Let's make this happen, guys. Let's put this baby back in. And the drive shaft is fully installed. You have your 5/8 bolts in the back, torque to 37 foot-pounds. You have your front part of the drive shaft, Allen size 6, 15 foot-pound torque. And you have your, let me see if you can see it, your carrier bearing. Here it is right there, a new install. Can you see it? Here it is right there. Or better yet, you can see it this way better. Okay, the 2 bolts are a size is 16 millimeter, and the torque on it is 35 foot-pounds. But you might ask, well, how am I going to torque this to 35 foot-pounds? Well, it's simple. You're going to need actually a 3/8 drive metric dog bones, and that's how you get that done. You're going to have to eyeball the alignment of the drive shaft, make sure it's as straight as possible, and the job is done, guys. Now let's get it off the jack stand and take this baby for a ride. And hopefully we have addressed this vibration that comes from the metal. At least we have minimized it as much as possible. Thank you very much for watching this, guys. Hope this video was of help to you, at least in how to do the center carrier bearing or drive shaft support bearing and the U-joints. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Give it a like if this video was of help to you. Subscribe if you will, and we will see you at the next video. Take care.